For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Welcome to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of it, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Bring Me to Life podcast. Today I got my partner Suleiman here with me, and we are excited to interview an amazing new person to our community. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. My name is Daljit. You can call me D, and I am the founder of Positive Illuminations. I'm a tarot reader and a spiritual consultant, as well as a mother of 2 babies that just turned 9 months, as well as a 3-year-old who thinks she's 23. We manage that as best as we can. And then I'm also an attorney. I represent pregnant workers when they have workplace issues.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Sounds like you got quite the hands full going on over there.
Yes, which is why I'm really excited about having made a big decision recently to quit my lawyer job for a little while and try to get my body, mind back in shape, and also explore tarot a little more than I have been able to in the past.
Beautiful. So tarot seems to be where your heart is really leading you right now. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what tarot is and what it means to you?
Sure. So I didn't really know much about tarot until I went to college. I went to Mills College, which we call it a women's university with no boys. And so it was a formative experience for me. It's where I gained my voice. It's where I explored my sexuality and really just came into my own. I really became a voice for the voiceless in college. And that's where I learned about tarot from a friend who was from the Caribbean. At that time, I think I didn't really understand it fully from a spiritual level, although I think that kind of process is something that occurs over a lifetime. As with the field of law, the field of tarot is so vast that you could spend your whole life just exploring one underside of one leaf of one tree of that entire forest. But when I dropped out of college for things I won't get into, and when I went back to college after that short break, I met a woman who was a Buddhist. She was a professor, and I was still taking pre-law courses, and she exposed me to Buddhism, which really helped me navigate family issues, but also tarot. And so I strengthened my tarot reading with her over the years. And then in 2012, as with many people, the start of the consciousness shift, or whatever you want to call it, I was called, guided to relocate from the Bay Area, where I was born and raised, to Punjabi working class immigrants, which really colored my exposure to spirituality, very heavily influenced by Eastern religion, Sikhism, and just the philosophy that school is life, we are students, and nirvana is the goal. The goal is to kind of learn all your spiritual lessons, and once you've learned all those lessons, then you can kind of escape that cycle of life and death. And we see that represented within the tarot. The tarot is it's basically cards, it's paper, but what gives it meaning is the symbols, and the symbols have deep connection to our collective subconscious. And so when we read tarot, we're really able to kind of get answers to things that we need clarity on. We're able to use it in many different ways. I was exposed to tarot, like I said, in college. And when I came to DC in 2012, I didn't really know anybody, but I got a really great job, almost 6 figures, representing an international labor union representing transit workers. So it was great work. That's mainly why I came, and it was really hard to date in California. So I thought, hey, well, I want to get out of here. My parents would drive me nuts. They wanted me to get married, and, I got to go. And so I was bartering things for my new apartment, and I ran into this woman who she discovered I did tarot. She did art. We ended up talking about creative things, and I said, how about a tarot reading? And she said, sure. I gave her a reading. It gave her chills. She started crying, and she gave me her $750 leather couch, which was amazing. And that's when I thought, hey, this is really worth something. Maybe I need to stop giving free readings to friends and family and actually quantify this, get business cards drafted, and get that website launched. And so that's what I did in 2012. And that same person that I read for actually had a friend whose sister was the chair of the Washington, D.C. Readers Tarot Society, which is now called Capital Tarot Society. And that's how I met more tarot readers locally. And so since then, I've been performing tarot readings at parties, events, fundraisers, as well as individually. And I also teaching tarot, which is a huge passion of mine. But when we think about tarot, I know a lot of folks in the media or just folks that aren't in these communities may think of it like, oh, that's devil worship. It was considered something that was banned because of its paganistic tone and, not really being into Christianity at the moment. So it was banned in Italy and Spain in the 1400s. No one really knows where it came from, but it's having a resurgence. It's becoming more and more popular. And that's why I like to say tarot is the new yoga. And if you want to stretch and expand that intuitive muscle, follow me on Instagram at the Tarot Mama or my website, positiveilluminations.com. Quick plug there. But nonetheless, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Tarot and what it is, right?
Yeah. I just want to say that you were talking about doing events and parties and stuff. That's actually where we met you in DC at the Glow Club, and we both of us got a reading, and it was funny because since her and I have been together for so long and we're so connected, our readings were kind of like similar, but just very slightly like tuned to us individually. And it was really awesome. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, it was really magical, and we both really loved our readings. And I love that you use tarot because I use Oracle, and we've had a lot of different readers on the show, but most of them are all Oracle card readers because it's kind of like when you said that the surge is coming back, I think that a lot of people in the New Age community, they are scared of the word tarot in general, even though Oracle cards are based off tarot. Personally, what I found is most Oracle cards, they just have newer art forms to them, and they're not based off of what is the Rider-Waite, I believe, is like the traditional tarot set.
Right.
And most Oracle decks also don't seem to have a death card. But if you personally, do you know any other differences that may be between Oracle cards and tarot cards for our audience that isn't as familiar?
Sure. So that does go into the history a little bit. So like I said, no one really knows the real origin of tarot, but in the early 1900s, there was this secret occult society in the United Kingdom in Britain. It was called the Golden Order of the Hermetic Dawn. And so in this secret society, Arthur Edgar Waite, as well as Aleister Crowley were members, and they both created decks by using women artists who were completely robbed of any profits, which is terrible. So a lot of people have started to call the Rider-Waite Smith deck actually the Smith Rider-Waite, to give credit to Pamela Coleman Smith, who was the artist that died penniless and actually created all the pictures that are on the Rider-Waite deck. This deck is different than Oracle cards because just look at the images. It's a little medieval Renaissance-like-ish, and Oracle cards aren't really following that structure. A traditional tarot deck is going to have the major arcana as well as the minor arcana. And arcana just means hidden secrets. And so it's divided into two parts, basically. The major arcana are, they're numbered. It starts with 0, the full card, and it ends up to 22. And it's basically a representation of the human journey. We are spirits having a human experience. And so it's that human experience from beginning to end, and the end being nirvana, and the beginning being birth, the beginning, the student, the enthusiastic, innocent, clean slate of a newborn baby. That's the start. And then you have the minor arcana, which reflect the 4 elements, fire, earth, air, and water. And that's represented in the minor arcana, which represent the daily events that impact us from a day-to-day life, like whether it's our work, career, love, relationships, health, mind, body, heart, and mind, body, heart, and I'm blanking on the fourth one. I have it in my notes, but I don't want to go there because it's nice to just free flow. But nonetheless, so it's the thing that's beautiful about tarot that differs from oracle decks will give you clear-cut guidance, but it's not necessarily steeped in this deep symbolic interpretation. Isn't really required. The answer's very clear, it's right there. But with tarot, you need skills in pattern recognition, symbolic interpretation, and intuition. That trifecta is, those three skills is what we develop in the courses that I teach. It's not, it can be intuitive, but not necessarily. So with tarot, there's stories, visual stories in each card, and they have kind of ancient meaning and meaning that has been published in books, but also what's kind of required is understanding your intuition and listening to what that first hit is. So I always tell my students, when you see a card in a tarot card, as opposed to oracle deck, you always want to listen to what your first intuitive hit is, because that's usually the most accurate, and combine that with the traditional meanings that already exist and develop your own correspondences. For example, I am of Punjabi origin. My parents are from northern India, so I grew up being exposed to a lot of Indian cultural elements, which includes the chakra system. And so for me, when I see cards like the Magician card with the red robe, and I see the Emperor with the red robe, and I see the Hierophant with the red robe, and the Justice card with the red robe, all of those to me, I'm thinking, okay, this is about the root chakra. They are dealing with physical manifestations of power. What are they doing at the material realm? That's what ties them all together. And that color correspondence wouldn't necessarily come to me intuitively unless I wasn't exposed to the chakra system already. Similarly, I grew up with parents that were kind of against Western medicine and really approached health with ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine. And Ayurveda is the ancient Indian science. And so in Ayurveda, the building blocks of life are those essential elements, which are represented by the four suits of the tarot, which are the pentacles, the swords, the cups, and the wands. All those correlate with an element, which correlates with the elements in Ayurveda, as well as that fifth element, which is ether, which just takes up space. It's what takes up space within your body, in the cavities, as well as in the world around us. And that correlates to the major arcana cards, 0 to 22, the Fool to the World card. And so that correspondence is something that's going to come to me, maybe not necessarily Joe or Jack, because of my experience. And so tarot is always colored by your personal experience. You can look at the little white book for meanings, but it's really so much more than that.
Mm-hmm. So do you think when somebody comes to you, they're coming to you because of your specific background and perspective?
I think that helps. I think that someone that was maybe raised is familiar with like Rosicrucian art and was raised Baptist or maybe Catholic might look at the Hierophant and see something different than me. I mean, the key, the cross is going to have some religious significance, and they will have exposure to those symbols that will be different than my own, but it doesn't mean that one's right or wrong. That's the beautiful thing about tarot. It's a sacred art like I Ching or numerology, and all of those, they have something similar and fundamental to them. Intuition is the key, and this kind of spiritual age that we're in is really about finding God within as opposed to without. This isn't the era of like Buddha, Jesus, and leaders being born to give us guidance. We are seeking guidance on our own because we realize that the answer is within. And so tarot is not necessarily something that I would encourage people to use to figure out what to wear tomorrow, or whether some, when they're gonna get married or things like that. It's because what you can ask that question, but the answer that's going to come out is going to be ultimately for your own self-development and for the furthering your own spiritual evolution. That's how I kind of look at the tarot cards and the tarot reading.
When What are some of the best questions that you, or maybe that's not the best way to word it, what are some questions that you enjoy being able to read for, or that you suggest kind of asking, or even categories?
Sure, sure. So I know that there's a lot of schools of thought out there, but I personally love the Celtic Cross. It's the basic 10 card spread. I feel like you can get a lot there from whatever questionnaire there is. So if I have a querent that isn't sure what they want to know, doesn't really have a burning question on their mind, I will say, what is there for me to know about the next 6 months? What is there for me to know about the next year? And then you'll get more of a broad analysis. You'll get more of a broad kind of picture of what's there to expect. Whereas there's other questions where if somebody's a business owner and they're debating between two different projects, or whether to expand or not, or whether to close up shop or not, if there's different options that one is grappling with, then I will actually do a vertical spread for each option. And that's really helpful in illuminating like a clear path forward. The past, present, future spreads, I also like those as well. It really just depends. There's so many spreads out there. There's spreads that are created for different new moons and full moons. And one way that I like to encourage my clients to use tarot is not just for divination and kind of figuring out an answer to something that may be hidden, but also as manifestation work. So really channeling the inner magician within ourselves. This magician card is one of my favorite. The magician has all 4 symbols of each suit of the tarot, which is represented by the 4 elements on the table. This means that they have the tools they need to move forward. They're pointing upwards and below, so as above so below, and they got the lemniscati above their head, so they're being guided. And that kind of esoteric knowledge of infinite intelligence is inherent here, so they're ready to move forward. And so I use this card a lot, just as a manifestation tool when I'm trying to create something, when I'm trying to create a course and I want to really manifest and I want to get that yang energy going. I'm building. This is not a time for passivity or like kind of observing, quietly listening, because there's appropriate times for that as well. But if I'm in a mood to really make shit happen, I'm going to pull this card out, I'm going to put it on my altar. And I'm going to work with those cards in that way. So I think that the cards are visual stories, but they're also tools for one's altar, kind of setting the tone for what it is we're petitioning our saints or our guides or the source or God or universe, whatever it is that we're seeking. It kind of anchors us to that. It's like a crystal in that sense. It can really activate potential and kind of facilitate you, supplement you, and kind of be that helpful force to make it happen. And so I like to use them in conjunction with my crystals for manifesting in different rituals.
Yeah, I know somebody who really loves using crystals.
I really love using crystals with my readings and just being able to bring it all together. But in general, I know you mentioned that you have some webinars and things coming up. But before we get to that, I'm kind of curious. I want to jump back to earlier in conversation. You talked about how you used to do readings for free, and it was kind of like your thing for friends and family. And I firmly understand that. And I've done the switch to kind of making it more of a part of my business and offerings to the world on a deeper level. What I'm wondering is, how was that transition for you from going to offering it? I know you still offer to certain activities and stuff as a donation, but what was the response to your community when you started charging for your work, basically? Because I know there's a lot of like controversial topics about that in the New Age community.
Right, definitely. I've definitely had some friends that have said, well, I have a few friends that I'm really close to, like best friend level, and they'll want me to do a reading for free for their friends who I don't have a connection to. And I've done that once or twice in the interest of, okay, I'm getting my name out there. They're a friend of a friend. Let's help them out. And you can only do that so much. And I think that I was told by one of my kind of elders, and who's a tarot reader that I respect, an elderly mentor, and she said, this is an energy exchange. And so even if it doesn't have to be cash, it doesn't have to be something that you put in my PayPal or you Venmo me. It could be you babysitting my child, washing my car, or giving me a back rub, or giving me a Reiki session from afar. And I've done that as well. I've bartered Reiki sessions in exchange for tarot. You heard about the couch. And so I like the system of bartering. It's very anti-capitalist, and it kind of gives me hope that we can and will forge a new economy, and that we will value this kind of work. I think that we, as, if you want to call yourself a light worker or a hippie or whatever, whoever, but I know who your listeners are, and I sense that there is this need at a collective level to give more value to our gifts and to our talents. And so it's hard for folks like us to not give it that value that it deserves. But once I did, things really changed. And what I've done for friends and family that I'm giving readings to, I will ask them as soon as the reading kind of ends and they've processed it and they're open, I'll ask them, how much do you think that I should charge for a reading like that? And I often get answers like 65, 100. I would pay 100. I would pay 65. They're not necessarily paying me for that, but it's good to get, it's like a focus group. It's a free focus group. And I use those readings as opportunities to kind of hone in my craft, practice something that maybe I wouldn't want to practice on a paid client. You can kind of do that with family and friends. And so another thing that I'll do is, if it is somebody who's a contact of a close family friend, I'll offer them a discount, maybe like 35% off or something like that. So they feel that they're getting a discount, getting a good deal. And I often go over, I've had readings where like there's a timer and you hear the beep, and that's just not my vibe. I don't like that. So if I feel that the energy of the cards want to speak longer, I'll go longer. But I'm also trying to be cognizant of my role and my responsibilities to other people in my family. And so I think as a parent, there's only so many free things that you can do. And so it becomes easier to justify that, because it's like, hey, I got to put food on the table and I got to put kids through college or something like that. So the guilt kind of dissipates when you put it into practical terms like that.
For sure.
There's a book called The Celestine Prophecies. The first book, it talks about a spiritual economy where people are investing into each other's gifts, and it just, I think, will expand like what we're trying to do for this world. I think it will expand.
I mean, you two are doing that. You are like huge agents of change for that. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think that's something that a lot of people are kind of forgetting too, is back in the day when we were in tribes and communities, the healers and the people that had the voice and were able to give the advice and stuff, they were taken care of. Like, they were fed, they were clothed, they were given gifts for their services. And with the way that we've all changed in our communities, it has kind of become money-based. And I'm always curious how other healers and spiritual leaders take that on, because I'm the same way. I firmly believe in the bartering system and finding a way to do the energy exchange. And I'm always going over readings if I don't have like another client or someone lined up. That way I want people to feel they get their full exchange. But there are a lot of people out there that are still like against the idea of any sort of payment for those services. So I love to get the perspective out there for them, so they realize that when they invest in a small business such as your own, they're not just investing in you reading cards for them. They're feeding your children. They're paying for whatever activities they need to be in. They're helping you get gas to get to your next reading or whatever it is. So for those listening, I want them to understand what they're investing in. Much like an artist, there's more than what you see going into that investment.
Yes, definitely.
Beautiful. So I would like to share, tell us more about your webinar courses and how people can learn from you or reach out to you.
Sure. So my Instagram handle is @thetarotmama, MAMA, and my website is positiveilluminations.com. And I'm working with Adam Ellenboss, who's a very talented astrologer. He follows Hellenistic astrology, and I've learned immensely from him over the past years. And he's going to be hosting that webinar. So it's targeting most of his community, which is 15 to 20,000 people. Most of them are astrology students or astrologers themselves. And so this is a huge opportunity for us within our different fields to really start to overlap our wisdom. And there are actually a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's one author in particular named Pappas, who wrote a book, A Tarot of the Bohemians, very like old school, like maybe 1800s, kind of our archaic guidebook on tarot. And in that book, he basically straight up says from the beginning, if you want to be a tarot reader, you need to know astrology. Like there is no tarot without astrology. And so the connections are so deep. I'm still starting to learn them. But in my course, I'm hoping to dig into that a little bit deeper. I will introduce the students to each tarot card. We'll discuss the meanings. We'll discuss correspondences, whether those are astrology based or otherwise. There's numerological significances as well as correlations with the chakras and different crystals that correspond to each tarot card. And so once we go through that, then we start practicing with different spreads, and then doing homework at home as well. One thing that all my students are required to do is to start to create a tarot binder where, I won't go into all the contents, but one really huge aspect of that is tarot tracking. And tarot tracking takes the daily tarot card pool to another level. This is where we create an Excel spreadsheet, or it could be pen to paper if that's what they prefer, but I find that I'm on the computer anyway, so it's nice to have it all there. And you start to track the card that you pulled, the astrological map of the day or the week, like is the moon in a waxing moon, is it new moon in Libra, or is it Mercury retrograde, what is happening in the cosmos, and what your initial thoughts are when you pull that card, the card's traditional meaning, and then there's one additional column for pattern review that happens within 6 months. So every 6 months you go back and you identify your own internal patterns by looking at what the cards say and what the meanings were then and what that means to you now. And the power of that is you really can dig deep into your own soul's transformation through the tarot. And so it's a different way of looking at tarot. And I encourage that for all my students. And so that's something that we will explore as well. And it deepens your knowledge, because you can try to memorize key words, but it's not going to have any significance until it has application. And application occurs when we get to that point where we're reading a lot. But if we're beginning, we may not necessarily have those paid readings or even free readings to learn from. And so you learn on yourself first and foremost. And that's where kind of the images and the colors and the patterns kind of make a permanent space in your brain. There's actually research to show that when you do the pen to paper action with the tarot journal, which is a little bit more powerful than the tarot tracking, because if you can free write for a while and draw parallels that way, you actually start stimulating the cells at the base of your brain, which act as like a traffic controller, and it'll siphon that knowledge directly to the cerebral cortex so that it is there, and then it surprisingly comes out when you do your readings. Like it's amazing how the brain works. Just going to sleep thinking about tarot, I would wake up when I was in intense study periods, I would see tarot images everywhere, like going to get a cup of coffee and, oh, that's the Hierophant, like, oh, I just had a hermit experience, or, the cards become alive and the archetypes become alive, and the psychology behind it is so fascinating. So in our courses, we'll also discuss Carl Jung and his kind of relationship to tarot, because there is one there, and psychology does have relevance to tarot when it comes to the two-step dream analysis and symbolic interpretation, the collective subconscious. Those are all Jungian terms. And so there's a lot of literature out there on Jung and tarot as well, which is exciting, which is something that I try to incorporate in my tarot courses. One quote that I really like from my first book on tarot, which was about the New Apprentice by Eileen Connolly, and she says that it is not the picture itself that should interest you so much as the symbolic philosophy behind the picture and how the picture affects you personally. And so all these visual stories take on new meaning when we give time to kind of analyze the cards and apply it to our own kind of experience.
I love that. That's a lot of amazing content to offer in a webinar. When do you have any date or anything set up for that, or how people can sign up?
So the dates will be advertised on my Instagram page once that gets solidified. I think that we're aiming for August, the end of July, August, but I have to finalize that after I speak to my current boss, because I'm still transitioning between the lawyer job and these kinds of endeavors. But very soon, the course dates should be out soon, and then Nightlight Astrology will be advertising them as well, and then they'll have it recorded and available for purchase later on if people aren't available to attend the webinars.
Awesome. And again, your Instagram is the Terra Mama?
Yes.
Awesome.
THAROTMAMA.
Beautiful.
Try to make sure to put a link for your Instagram in the description.
Yes, I'd love that. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Well, we're starting to run out of time today, but I believe you have some cards there, and I was wondering, would you be interested in giving us a general read for our community so that they can get a feel for your style?
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay, so I like to do breath work in the beginning and just kind of release the day and any thoughts, fears, anxieties. Asking for clear and accurate answers. Thank you, guides. Thank you, the intelligence of the universe. Please provide us with clear and accurate answers. What is there for the collective to know this week? What is there for the collective to know this week? What is there for the collective to know this week? What is there for the collective to know this week? What is there for the collective to know this week? So I'm cutting the deck, and I'm going to lay out 3 cards. Okay, so the beginning of the week starts out with kind of a charge, really like energy that is very directed, and energy that is very able to control opposing forces. This is the Chariot. This is the element of 7. Struggle was in the past, but you're getting really close to winning this game. That's how the week starts. That's your Monday, Tuesday. By Wednesday, we're shifting from that action-oriented drive, that momentum that's pushing forward. We're kind of slowing down when we get to the middle of the week, and we're checking in with the emotions of others. We're showing empathy. We're showing compassion. We're showing leadership and being able to maintain harmony. Maybe you're helping people in your roommates solve a conflict, or maybe you're helping guide your loved ones into some sort of clarity on a problem that they're facing. That's what the King of Cups represents. That's that archetype. It can be a person, but it can also be an energy, and that's what I'm getting mostly from this card. We're delving into the emotions of others in the middle of the week. And so that can have an effect on us. That can be stressful, and there's ways that we can protect ourselves from taking on the energy of others, especially if we're very empathic. One is by space alone. And so by the end of the week, we're being called to kind of take a break and maybe meditate, take a hot bath, some alone time, me time. Me time is so important to really, really be able to follow your own light and not be so influenced or sidetracked by the energy or influences of others. And so that is that. We move from the Chariot, King of Cups, to the Hermit.
Beautiful.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I love it too. That was really great. Thank you.
I plan on we have this meditation room in our house that I like to go like at least once a month, go in there for most of the day and just kind of lay there and meditate. And that's
lovely.
He's already claimed that as his hermit day. He's already in the calendar.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I feel like I've learned a lot personally from you today. I hope the audience has as well. Is there anything else at all real quick that you would like to share?
Visualize victory are my parting notes. I think with the Chariot energy this week, if we just have that kind of vision and kind of set on that path, then the sky's the limit.
It's awesome. I love that. And I believe do you have a website that people could go to find out more information?
So www.positiveilluminations.com. You can go there to book a reading, to just learn a little bit about me. And also if you want to have a group event, that's where you would schedule that. And then when I have more details on the tarot webinar, they will be on that website as well. But I also post on the Instagram. The Instagram is great if you just want to casually learn about tarot. I post tarot cards and spreads, and it's kind of helpful if you don't have time to actually invest in learning in a webinar setting.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you having here. It's been a great topic.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it too. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Me too. You too. And please send me the link so I can share it. I'd love to share it when it's ready.
Definitely will do. Will do.
Take
All right.
care.
For everyone that's watching and listening, I hope you have a great rest of your day too. And thanks for tuning in. Stay awake and shine on always.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for shining on with us.